Normally I don't really need a microphone, so if I start to get a little too loud, just let me know. Eric and I, as Scott said, are going to be tag teaming our presentation today on managing clients with challenging personalities. Anyone who practices in family law, and quite frankly, anyone who is an attorney who has individual clients, I think can run into this problem, unless you're somebody who's a corporate attorney and you're only dealing with entities, but even those entities have individuals you're dealing with, will find these challenges in representing. I mean, no two clients are alike. Certainly, I know in the room I see some GALs, lots of familiar faces, and the GALs probably more than anybody deal with people with challenging personalities, not their clients per se, but the parents that come in to visit with them. So certainly I think this is going to be applicable to anyone in the room who is, again, a practicing attorney and handles any kind of individuals. So statistically, over 9% of American adults have a diagnosable personality disorder. In other words, it's not in your imagination. Some of your clients are really mentally ill, okay? How many people have done a consult with a client or have a new client that comes in and says, my spouse is crazy, okay? Show of hands.
She's bipolar.
Right, everyone, almost all of my clients come in and they say, you know, my wife or my husband is bipolar. And I say, now what leads you to say that about them? And is that diagnosed by a doctor? Well, no, I went online and I checked out the internet. And the internet says everything the problem with my spouse exists. So I know she's bipolar, or I know she's narcissistic, or I know he's something else. And I say, okay, well, how is that going to help us in your case? Sometimes they also blame those types of things on the breakdown of the marriage. Quite frankly, I think we can all agree that usually people who are getting a divorce, there's fault on each side. So, and perhaps their spouse is also saying the exact same thing about them behind closed doors with their attorney. So again, keep in mind that some of our clients, probably a lot of our clients, again, those family law attorneys, are mentally ill. In fact, depending upon what kind of law you practice, the percentage of potential client base with diagnosable personality disorder is probably substantially higher than average. So again, those family law attorneys. So, any familiar faces, okay? Luckily or unluckily, these are not our clients. I mean, you know, probably get a lot of money from some of those people, but I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to represent Hannibal Lecter. You know, I don't want to end up as dinner or anything like that. So, but keep in mind, Eric and I, believe it or not, are not mental health providers, although I know every Missouri attorney has attorney and counselor at law. And family law attorneys, I certainly can tell you I do a lot more counseling than I do lawyering on most days. I'm sure you, again, can all relate to that, even if you aren't practicing primarily family law. But we are not here today to help you diagnose your clients. And quite frankly, if you ask me questions on, if I have a client that acts exactly like this, am I going to be able to stand up here and tell you this person fits into this cookie cutter description? Absolutely not. But I think we've provided a great presentation today that's going to give you some actual examples. Now again, they're kind of an inflated example, and some people that you'll recognize, but we're not here to help you diagnose your clients. We're here to help provide you with helpful tips for working with the clients who may exhibit these behaviors that are consistent with certain personality disorders. Again, doing certain things with different kind of clients. Absolutely, any day that we're handling a case, I handle each and every client differently because I know what their quirks are and what they aren't. So that's kind of what our presentation is about. And again, we hope you absolutely enjoy it. We will not be discussing the DSM-IV, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, in any great detail. Rather, we're going to provide brief characteristics associated with certain disorders, examples of the traits and behaviors associated with this disorder, and tips on how you can best serve these clients. Today we're going to focus on 4 personality disorders primarily, in particular that create high conflicts when we're dealing in litigation, and probably the ones you see the most when dealing with your clients.
People with personality disorders have what we call limited life scripts and usually believe or behave in fixed and unyielding ways that often force people around them to play implicitly assigned roles, like caregiver, bad guy. In other words, personality disorders have a sort of ripple effect on those around the person with the disorder. Clients with personality disorders can make you feel disordered as well. What is a personality disorder? It's an enduring pattern of behavior and subjective experience that affects a person's thinking, feeling, relationships, and impulsiveness. Often the affected person sees these patterns as perfectly reasonable and appropriate, despite the dramatic and negative impact on his or her daily life and the lives of those around her.
So, borderline personality disorder. Take a look at the screen. Single white female. Hopefully you all can get a great idea. I think it's a good example of somebody with borderline personality disorder. Borderline personality disorder, or BPD, is a mental health condition in which a person has long-term patterns of unstable or turbulent emotions. These inner experiences often result in impulsive actions and chaotic relationships with other people. People who have BPD are, in a word, unstable. Again, if you think of this movie, I think we'd all agree that she's unstable. They may even be suicidal and often engage in other self-destructive behavior. Clients with BPD can be lots of fun to work with until suddenly they're not. I'm sure you guys have all had that kind of client, great relationship, good to work with, happy, and then all of a sudden you flip the switch and worst client ever.
What's going on?
Right? The trouble is you may not get any clues that that client has a borderline personality disorder until it emerges later in the representation. In fact, at the beginning, he or she may be that perfect client. Or if you saw single white female circa 1992, the perfect roommate, up and until something happens to upset his or her idolized form of your representation. These are clients who will one day make you sound like the genius attorney out of a Grisham novel, which I know you all to be, or on the next day scream at you over the phone about what a moron you are. We've all been there, done that, right? So we're going to show you an example of this as well.
Because that was the only time I had free after I got off work.
This is a client
But,
who,
you know,
after
now
having
I'm
conversations
doing it.
about
I've been doing a lot more
gambling
recently,
practices
so
that are
every
due
time.
to the person who's
You
in
know,
it.
I'm like I said, I'm pretty good at it, and I think I almost think I can actually do that as a career, as like a job. I mean, there's lots of really good poker players out there, and I think I could really, I'm at that point now where I could be one of those really, bring in, $100,000, $200,000 a month.
What does it take to be good at that sort of thing?
Well, you just have to have a lot of skill. I feel like I've got a lot of skill in that area.
What's involved in the skill?
Notice the very tall.
You have to really read people, I think. You have to really be able to, get a feel for how the game's going and everything, when to bet high, when to, bet low and fake somebody out and bluff them and everything like that. And I've seen some guys who they crash and burn. They're idiots. And some of those guys, I can point them out because they're new and I can just wipe the floor with them.
Do you typically win? Do you typically lose? How does it generally go?
That's it. No, my percentage now is I'd say I win 90% of the games that I play. 90%, easy.
Oh, I'm just curious, how is it that you're having such financial hardship if you're so successful in this?
Look, that's what I was saying. It's that one was not my, I got in that trouble because it was, just a stupid mistake. It wasn't my fault, but it's I'm really, I feel like you're really attacking me right now, actually. I'm just trying to explain to you, how, what my life goals are and what I'm trying to do with my life. I'm trying to get back on my feet. This is what I really want to do. I can be successful at it. I just don't feel like you're really grasping that. You know what I'm saying? I understand where this is.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend you. It's just that you explained that you're having some financial hardship, and I really want to be on your side and help you out with this.
The financial hardships are not my fault, okay? It's like I said, that one incident, and I had an issue with my employer because my employer doesn't really, this guy has had it in for me since he started working there, and then I get laid off from my job. That's why I'm in financial hardship, not because my gambling. I'm a really good poker player, and I can. This is like a really tense subject right now. You know, I'm really feeling very, very attacked. You know.
Well, I certainly don't want you to feel that way. If you'd rather, we could move from this and come
Yeah,
back
that'd be.
Okay, so a great example of BPD, obviously it's not nearly as egregious as, your single white female where, again, perfect roommates, and then all of a sudden your roommate's killing your boyfriend and dressing up like you and then attacking you. So, but just good examples, and hopefully your clients aren't doing that. I mean, if a client shows up to a meeting looking like you, probably time to withdraw. But again, we want to give you guys examples because we're not professionals in this area. But again, seeing it and seeing how it is, obviously our examples aren't all family law situations, but again, I'm sure you've had kind of a similar conversation with your clients or ran into something that was similar on the video. But in legal matters, BPD may introduce intense, inappropriate anger. Clients with BPD may fly off the handle and abruptly terminate relationships, including your representation. Threats of ethics complaints and malpractice lawsuits inevitably follow, so keep that in mind when they terminate the relationship in anger. Clarity, consistency, and structure will help avoid this result, okay? Keep in mind, again, it's the handling of clients a little differently based on what the client's needs are or what they're telling you they need, and also based on their personality. Regular status calls or emails are especially important to borderline clients, and you should be prompt in returning communications, even if it's just to acknowledge that you will follow up. Representing a borderline client can be a roller coaster ride. Resist the ups and downs by staying calm and level. And borderline clients are going to challenge you to reject them. If you stay the course, you'll be able to do work that you were hired to do. And keep in mind, some of the tips have been summarized here, and I know you guys are also getting copies of the slides. So things to just keep in mind if you do recognize that you have a client with BPD.
Narcissistic personality disorder is a condition in which people have an excessive sense of self-importance, an extreme preoccupation with themselves, and a lack of empathy for others. You must recognize in the representation that they are kind of a big deal. NPD clients are often cooperative and engaged at first, but they will start blaming others and lashing out if unexpected problems arise during the course of their case. It's very difficult for clients with NPD to take responsibility for anything, or even to admit they played a role in their own problems, and they do not like to be called on it. Clients with NPD may storm out of your office if you point out the role that he or she played in creating the problem. I'm going to give you an example. It's a clip of an interview with Charlie Sheen with
Winning!
which a certain client I've had comes to mind. You might have clients as well that comes to mind. This is a news interview where he's confronted regarding his behavior.
Your anger and your hate, I think, is coming off as erratic to people.
My passion. It's all
Okay, your passion is coming off as erratic to
Right,
people.
well, did you borrow my brain for 5 seconds and just be like, dude, can't handle it, unplug this bastard, yeah, because it fires in a way that is, I don't know, maybe not from this particular terrestrial realm.
I think some of those things that you're putting out there are making people think something's wrong with you.
That's up to, that has nothing to do with me, really. I mean, they're entitled to, I suppose, interpret stuff as they must.
Some
You're
are-
a doctor of.
Some are saying that you're bipolar.
Wow, what does that mean?
I guess that, you're on two ends of the spectrum.
Wow, and then what? What's the cure? Medicine? Make me like them? Not gonna happen. I'm bi-winning. I've been there. Now what? If I'm bipolar, aren't there moments where a guy like crashes and like in the corner, like, oh my God, it's all my mom's fault? Shut up. Shut up. Stop. Move forward.
Have you had any celebrities reach out to you to
Oh
try
yeah,
and help you?
yeah. Radical people like Sean Penn and Mel Gibson and Colin Farrell and just radical people, and they're not telling me what to do.
Who gave you the best piece of advice?
Well, they didn't give me any advice, and within that, there's great advice. There was just love, and so just to see. It's oftentimes as unknown, but occasionally, a giant marquee name comes through on your caller ID, and it's like winning.
When was the last time you used?
I use a blender, I use a vacuum cleaner, I use household items, when was the last time I ingested or took drugs?
Yes, when
He
was the
uses
last time you
such
took drugs?
Such an AA, stupid expression or term. I don't remember. I do not
A
remember.
week ago, 2 weeks
Maybe a
ago,
month
2 days
ago,
ago.
6 weeks. I don't know. It was a couple days before the suits rolled in and said, change it, change everything, we're shutting you down.
Tell me about the last time you took
The
drugs.
last time I took drugs, I probably took more than anybody could survive, you know?
What are we talking about, how much?
I don't know, man. I was banging 7-gram rocks and finishing them because that's how I roll. I have one speed, I have one gear, go.
How do you survive that?
Because I'm me. Because I'm me, I'm different. I just have a different constitution, I have a different brain, I have a different heart, I have a different, I get tiger blood, man.
You don't worry that you're gonna die when you take that many drugs?
Dying's for fools.
But you're only human.
Now, there's certain bloods I will not entertain because that's how people go down. I'm too smart to do that. So, I'm sorry for the guys that happened to, but, you should have read the directions before you showed up at the party,
Charlie is exhibiting signs that he's extraordinary. After all, he does have tiger blood running through his veins. And you, person lacking tiger blood, you really can't identify with this person. This is an extreme encounter, but we all know that narcissists can actually be highly successful clients who appear to have it together. So how do you work with a client who may have a narcissistic personality disorder? First, try to start every conversation with the client talking them up and providing recognition of his or her skill set. It may feel like you're patronizing a person to say, well, sir, it's clear to me that you're one of the most intelligent clients I've ever worked with. I feel very lucky that you are one of the, to be working with you. But true narcissists will eat this up. Another tip that makes a lot of sense is to do all you can to make the narcissistic client feel as though they are always the ones in control, they are always the ones making the decision, and they are always number one, with your role being to explain to the client how the path you want them to take benefits their agenda. Always maintain the utmost courtesy and respect. Go along with his or her desire to see you as the worthy and high-status person that you are. After all, they chose you. Let him or her know and think that you are the best. But be careful not to appear to compete with your client. As exceptional as your client may think that you are, you must come in second to him or her. Suppress your irritation at your client's bragging or witty comments. Yeah, thank God I'm on the telephone so I can rein in my facial expressions here. Narcissistic clients need your endorsement, and they will probably settle down and stop begging for it if you stroke your ego a little bit. Where things get especially difficult with a client who has NPD is settlement, where the client might have to acknowledge some responsibility. You must convey to the client the bigger picture, and that you're on his side, and explain why it's necessary to accept some responsibility while preserving as much self-esteem as possible. Do not fall in the trap of getting demoralized when working with a narcissistic client who may never recognize the quality of your work. Satisfy yourself that your work is up to par, and do not get preoccupied if the client does not recognize it. Do not abruptly terminate the representation. NPD clients can be incredibly aggravating, and it is easy to lose your cool, especially if you are an NPD attorney. As with all clients who have NPD, you might think to yourself, hey, I don't need this. But if you follow the tips and you tailor your communications and focus, you will see success and lead this client towards the reasonable resolution of his case. If you do abruptly terminate, expect that this client will tell everyone about how horrible of an attorney you are. After all, he or she was the perfect client.
All right, take a look at that picture. Again, a great representation of antisocial personality disorder. And I can't resist, but hello, Clarice. It's good to see you again. Anyway, obviously this is, again, the most extreme example, and hopefully you're not having somebody willed in on a card with a face mask and whatnot that is a killer. However, there's a big difference between being a bit antisocial and antisocial personality disorder. This is the reckless, irresponsible, manipulative client. Antisocial personality disorder is a mental condition in which a person has a long-term pattern of manipulating, exploiting, or violating the rights of others. This behavior is often come into contact with the legal system. That's because a key marker of this disorder is failure to conform to social norms with respect for the lawful behaviors. That does not necessarily mean criminal behaviors, keep that in mind. But people with ASPD have an overriding motivation to pull something over on others. You guys, again, all ran into this client. Well, we don't have to disclose everything on our statement of property. Well, maybe we won't include my income from my rental properties. Sir, your wife knows you have rental properties, right? We're gonna figure that out, okay? Again, and they take pleasure in consciously manipulating people, including you, so keep that in mind. You are as likely to find them at the head of a corporation as in the back of a police cruiser, so again, keep that in mind. They are reckless, lack remorse, and are highly impulsive. They either rationalize the harm they do to others or they don't care. People with ASPD need to control others to feel powerful. Like the narcissistic clients, they may brag and deny any responsibility for their problems, but they will do it in different ways. A client with ASPD is more likely to brag about illegal activities and to characterize illegal activities as something that everyone else does too. They also lie a lot. So now we're going to take a look at a video of an LA convicted murderer that has the antisocial personality disorder as he responds to questions regarding his criminal behavior.
My name is Danny Lindstrom. I'm 37 years old. I'm doing second-degree life sentences with 5, 18 to 20 concurrent sentences with a 4 to 5 from and after. The crime that I'm in on is a murder. It was drug-related. And I've been in since I came in originally in 1978, and I escaped in 1979, and I've been back since 1980. Ran out of money. I wanted to go get drunk down in Cambridge. I lived out in the outskirts, out in a smaller town. I'm from the inner city.
Take another sip.
And I ran out of money. It was late at night, and I wanted to go down and get loaded. And it's sort of along the lines of, I wasn't weighing the consequences of what it was, and even if I was weighing the consequences, I really didn't care. I wasn't looking that far ahead. I certainly wasn't looking far enough ahead to say, I'm going to spend the next 17 or 18 years of my life in jail. Specifically, I murdered a guy in his kitchen. I shot his wife in the chest. I hit her in the face with the gun. I beat the husband prior or during the course of this whole thing. And my thoughts during that whole affair were along the lines of, what the hell do you think you're doing? And when it came down to making a decision, the gun had been like going back and forth, aimed at my head, aimed at his head, aimed back at me, and we were in a struggle. And the last thought that I recall, really that I can recall that I had was, now you're going to die. And that was it. That was sort of like a decision that was made. I was mad. I was, it's crazy, but indignant that he'd be fighting with me.
So, unless you're practicing criminal law, a lot of times we're not going to hear these stories, but you can liken this to a person where you're saying, hey, if we're dealing with a contested custody case, if you do X, Y, and Z things during the case, it's going to hurt it, and the client simply just doesn't care about the consequences of their action and proceeds forward in the way that they want. So, to put this together, and clients with ASPD can be dangerous to work with, so keep that in mind. The most important thing when dealing with antisocial clients is to maintain safety. Schedule meetings when other people will be around. Adopt a firm and direct approach so you're seen as strong and not weak. Be rigid when it comes to expectations, billing, and other aspects of representation. Antisocial clients are a good reason not to be lenient on payment plans or not to accept them at all, as they will take pleasure in skipping out on your bill. So here you get to deal with them and you don't get paid. In order to forge a relationship with an antisocial client, you have to play to their need to control. Make yourself useful to them by showing you can help them get what they want if they work with you. In discussing the legal matter, focus on consequences, not legality or morality. Antisocial clients will tell you that they'll tell you what they think that you need to know and usually admit details in their narratives. You must elicit detail without challenging your client, which would send him or her into a rage. It's not uncommon for the antisocial personality disorder client to insist that you bend the rules just for them or do something that's a little bit unethical, such as not list assets on a financial declaration or allow them to testify in a manner that you know is false. Sure, we've all told our clients, don't tell me that because once I know it, I know it. So it's important when working with someone who exhibits these traits that you be mindful of your ethical obligations to the court and your state bar, and establish from the beginning that the representation and anchor the expectation of ethical behaviors. And again, just to memorialize the tips for working with antisocials, they're there on the slide, so take a look at those. You'll probably feel uncomfortable with antisocial clients and possibly contemptuous of them. We all know how that feels, right? You may even be afraid of them. If you find yourself working with antisocial clients, do not allow yourself to be intimidated or cheated. Be skeptical of everything you hear, a good quality for a lawyer anyway, and be safe when meeting with your client. Protect yourself financially with adequate retainers.
The clients with histrionic personality disorder are your overly dramatic clients. These clients have a distorted or exaggerated view of the situation, which makes it difficult for the client to understand why others do not agree with him or her. They will outright disagree with your assessment of the strengths and weaknesses of their case and your legal strategies. These clients have fear of being ignored, and they need to be on display. If these clients are not the center of attention, he or she may do something dramatic, like make up a story or create a scene to draw the focus of attention to him or her. He or she has underlying dependency needs, which need to be fulfilled by attention, affection, and or stimulation. This client will manipulate with drama, charm, tantrums, even as the person is seeking attention, affection, and approval. These clients will exaggerate stories, create detailed, non-existent facts, and will attempt to persuade you that he or she is the victim. There are frequent crises, emergency phone calls, and dramatic reports about the opposing party. This is an interview with Anna Nicole Smith, offering explanations for erratic behavior that she exhibited at a movie ceremony.
The American Music Awards just totally blew up everywhere, and there were numerous reports. One of the reports mentioned that you were on drugs or you were delirious. They called you manic. What do you say about that?
Not on drugs. I didn't have one cocktail. I was up all night puking the night before. I was a little bit shaky. I was nervous. But after the awards, I was completely fine. After I did the show, I was fine. Everything was fine. I took pictures. I did interviews afterwards. I sat on the tractor, I took tons of pictures, I was happy. Woo! People thought I was, now I'm hearing people thought I was drunk and on drugs, and I'm losing it. I'm not losing in America. I'm fine, I'm okay, I'm happy, don't worry about me, I'll be fine. But thanks for the worries. Well, before I took the stage, I was like thinking, oh my God, please don't trip, please don't fall, please don't puke, because I hate public announcements. Because my worst nightmare is missing the line. And of course, what did? I missed the line. That's what I did, I missed the line.
There was also a mention that backstage you had to be held up, that you couldn't stand on your own.
Not true. There was a bunch of wires backstage, and my bodyguard helped me get across the wires. It was really dark. Bodyguards do that. They help you get across the wires to get you off stage. Big deal.
Now, it's easy to become absorbed and sometimes even seduced by a person with histrionic personality disorder. Before acting, ask the HPD client for supporting documents and witness verification. So before you go crying to the court, and before you go call opposing counsel and start screaming, make sure what you're claiming happened actually happened. You must independently verify the client's claims. Give the client full attention, including eye contact whenever you have meetings with this client. Avoid distractions and do not interrupt with questions. Be empathetic. Support the person, but do not immediately support their position. Supporting unverified claims validates high conflict behavior. It is important to set clear boundaries and maintain them. Do not get pulled into her world. Set limits on when and how you communicate. Do not give out your cell phone number unless you are willing to receive the calls. And do not be seduced physically or emotionally. Avoid bending boundaries to avoiding bending boundaries to reduce emotional intensity. Insist that your retainer stay current, because once this client falls behind, you've lost your control. Remain professional and do not allow the client to be abusive. It is difficult to compromise a dispute because the histrionic personality disorder client might see it as acknowledgement of his or her contribution to the behavior or to the problem. You must reframe the reason for the compromise. There are enormous benefits for your client in reaching settlement. Do a trial budget, being as specific as possible, including work for pleadings, discovery, motions, preparation for trial, and including fees for reporters, depositions, expert witnesses, as well as the incidental costs, such as when the client is calling you every single day. Discuss the time your client needs to dedicate to the litigation and trial and how it will impact his or her life. Objectively analyze each issue that might come up at trial and do it in a way that does not challenge the client's honesty. Be calm and non-threatening, focusing on the client conflict details, and point out that there are different views on each issue. So empathize that even if your client is right, there is a risk that the judge will believe the other party, and the client will have to pay the attorney's fees and costs and lose substantial time. There are 6 other personality disorders that are important to cover, because even though individuals with these disorders are less likely to create those extremely high conflict cases that lead to litigation, they are sometimes paired with people who have one of the 4 personality disorders that we previously mentioned. In addition, they have their own special needs, which attorneys must be aware of how to manage. The first is obsessive compulsive, and clients with this disorder have a pattern of preoccupation with orderliness, perfectionism, and control. This is your client who will be incredibly detail-oriented. Make sure you spell check. It is very important to direct the focus to the big picture and communicate to the client what the next steps are going to be in his or her divorce process. Be consistent and insistent from the very outset of your relationship with these clients that although you respect their thinking, you are the expert and expect them to acknowledge that. Dependent clients, these clients exhibit a pattern of submissive and clinging behavior related to an excessive need to be taken care of. This is your client who has difficulty making decisions without an excessive amount of advice and reassurance. They tend to indiscriminately replace one passive and dependent relationship with another. For example, from his or her spouse to you. These are the clients who you do not need caller ID, because you know their number. You have it memorized. You see it daily. You must take an authoritative and directive role with these clients. They need it. You must make sure, however, that the client is not just taking your advice without actually understanding what he or she is agreeing to. So, in-office meetings are crucial so that you can visualize the client and make sure you are understanding that they understand what they're agreeing to. Anytime there's an important decision that needs to be made. You need to take those periodic timeouts to check in, make certain that they're not feeling overwhelmed, that they understand the status of the case, they understand the strategy going forward. And finally, you need to make sure you're clear to your client from the get-go regarding fees for your services, as those daily calls and emails will come at a cost. The next one, paranoid personality disorder issues involves a pattern of distrust and suspiciousness, such that the other's motives are interpreted as malevolent. These are the clients who believe that his or her spouse has been planning the divorce for a long time, that the others are colluding against them. It will be important to try to understand and follow your client's reasoning. For example, if it is a concern that the spouse is hiding assets or not disclosing the true value of an asset, make sure you're completing the discovery necessary to back up information provided in the disclosure statements, to verify and reassure your client that you are performing your due diligence and not accepting statements from the opposing party as true. He or she may not be pure, he or she might be right. If you are not sure about something, tell the client you need more information. And always keep accurate records and make notes of your meetings with the client and follow up with the client in writing, which is best practices anyway.
The avoidant personality, it's a pattern of social inhibition, feelings of inadequacy, and hypersensitivity to negative evaluation. So the tips when dealing with an avoidant person, these are the clients who have a difficult time opening up and being candid. They have such low self-confidence that they do little to help themselves. They don't want to deal with the situation, so they may be unresponsive to your communication. Then they may become critical of the cost of the case, even though the costs are higher due to the client's own unresponsiveness and lack of effort. We've all dealt with those clients. You can't get them to answer, discovery's late, motions get filed, appearances have to be made, but now it's your fault that you didn't answer the discovery.
Why is this case going on for a year?
Right. You never called me back. Thank you. Okay. It is important to reinforce to the client that his representation is a partnership, and not only will it make them feel better to know that what is going on, it'll also keep costs down. You need to establish clear guidelines for communication and responsiveness on their case and enforce these expectations. Finally, this is a case where you will want the client to be familiar with your paralegal or legal assistant, as he or she will be doing a lot of follow-up for you when the client is non-responsive to your calls and emails. The schizoid personality is a pattern of detachment from social relationships and a restricted range of emotional expression. The tips when dealing with this type of personality, these clients are similar to the avoidant client because they are not non-responsive as well. But it's not because they're trying to avoid the situation, it just doesn't register to them as important. These are the clients who just appeared cold, detached, and indifferent. Like the avoidant client, you need to establish clear expectations from the client as to what we need from them and what your role will be, and to make sure that you guys are both on the same page as to status and strategy of the case. There will be times where you do not hear from the client and you need to track them down, which can be incredibly frustrating, and even more frustrating when they do not acknowledge that you are trying to get a hold of them. Patience with this client is absolutely key. And then the last one we're going to highlight, we know lunch, it's about lunchtime, everybody's favorite part of the day, but is passive aggressive. How many people do we know that are passive aggressive? Maybe even coworkers, but a pattern of negativistic attitudes, passive resistance to demands for adequate performance. Again, tips in dealing with these type of clients, they're clients who will sometimes sabotage their own case. You can negotiate this amazing resolution and the clients just don't want to follow the terms in the agreement. They will show up late for appointments, claiming they forgot, or will sabotage the children's parenting time schedule by being late, not showing up, and not calling to cancel. When you confront them on the issue too directly, you will be confronted with anger, resentment, and likely more passive resistance. You almost have to assume the role of the caring, authoritative parent who is dealing with a child who misbehaved and is trying to avoid punishment. Clear expectations and directions to these clients are very important. Keep a copy of everything and closely monitor and frequently encourage the client to comply with deadlines. Always follow up discussions in writing. I think that's a good tip with any type of client you have, any verbal communication you follow it up with writing, but absolutely this type of client. So now we basically, you do have an hour for lunch, but we'll open up the floor for any questions if there are any, and if not, we hope you enjoyed the presentation.